This week is the last week of the church's year. It's called the Reign of Christ, or Christ the King Sunday. And this year we have a story which is for me is one of the most inspiring and challenging stories. I've used it a lot. It's a story that Jesus tells. It's the last big story in the gospel. Matthew 25. It's a story of sheep and goats, and he says all these people, the king returns, and all the peoples of the world are gathered around him. And he divides them into two groups, like a shepherd would divide the sheep and the goats. To those on his right, he says, come into the kingdom that's prepared for you. For when I was hungry, he gave me something to eat. When I was thirsty, he gave me a drink. When I was naked, he gave me clothing. When I was sick or in prison, he visited me. And they said, when, Lord, did we do this to you? And he said, when you did that to the least of these brothers or sisters on earth, you did it to me. To the others he said, go out, you're gone. Because when I was hungry, you didn't give me food. When I was thirsty, you didn't give me a drink. They said, well, when did we see you hungry? When you saw one of these least brothers or sisters here on earth, and you didn't give it to me. You didn't do it. You didn't give them a drink. You didn't give it to me. It's the same thing. I find that so challenging because what he's saying is, it's picking up on that passage about loving God. What is the greatest commandment? Love God with all your heart, soul, mind, strength. Love your neighbour as yourself. This is a story, it's a story about love. It's about taking the risk to love another person. When someone has a need, to reach out in grace and love to meet that need. To give them a hand up. It's not about charity. It's not about pulling the $5 out of our pocket and giving to the homeless man. That might help him, and that's not a bad thing. It's about embracing that man and sitting down and having a meal with him. There's that story I think I told a few weeks ago. Anthony Mello, he's in his suit and going off to a meeting, walking down the main street, and he sees this homeless fellow, dirty, filthy, and their eyes lock, and as they walk, the man walks to him, and he's got his cup of coffee, and he reaches out, hey miss, you want a drink of me coffee? And DeMello doesn't really, and he says, sure. It's smudged and filthy, but he finds the cleanest bit and takes a small sip, and wow, you're generous with your coffee today. I suppose, there's something I can do for you. And the man says, yeah, and DeMello's thinking, Ken Polo's thinking, this is going to cost me $5, and he's going for his wallet, and the man says, you can give me a hug. And Ken Polo thinks, I'd rather give him $5, but anyway. He reaches around this filthy man, the dirt and grime, and pats his back, and he's pulling away. Just as he's pulling away, he feels his arms around him, pulling him in, and then the head on his shoulder. And the hug goes on and on and on, and people walking past this main street, looking at him, wondering what's going on. He's embarrassed, he's feeling shame. Then all of a sudden, these words of Jesus echo down 2,000 years. And when I was hungry, you gave me something to eat. When I was thirsty, you gave me a drink. When I was naked, you gave me clothes. When I was sick or in prison, you visited me. When I was a lonely, homeless man on the main street of the city, you gave me a hug. And he realised he was in the presence of Christ, and it was Christ he was hugging. For much of the church, much of its history, we've lived in systems of belief. We've created belief systems, whether they're theological systems of belief, things about if we believe this, think this, do this, we'll get to heaven when we die and all will be good. Or systems of belief that are about the laws and the structures of the church, or programs, or all sorts of systems of belief that tie us into a system that's nice and neat, but doesn't cost us anything except maybe time and tiredness, because we get busy doing it. And Jesus calls us out of these systems of belief into a way of life which is grounded in love and justice. It's grounded in reaching out to our fellow brothers and sisters and to the earth itself, to reaching out in love and making a difference. Because that's what the kingdom or reign of God is about. That's what life is ultimately about. That's what we find in the best of all religion and faith. All those systems, the best is about love and life and reaching out, doing for others what you would do, have them do to you, loving others as you love yourself, etc. And this is what he's calling us to do. When you do it for the least of these brothers or sisters, you're doing it for me. If you look into the eyes of a homeless or outcast or marginalised or poor or whatever it is person and care, you're doing it to me. You know, the reason that Desmond Tutu became an Anglican priest was because one day when he and his mum were walking down the street, they were on the footpath and coming towards him was a white man. And the tradition in apartheid was that they would step off the footpath onto the road to honour this man, this white person walking down the footpath. They couldn't share the footpath. As they're coming towards him and preparing to go onto the road, he steps onto the road and walks, salutes him with his hat and walks past. And Desmond is shocked, this young boy. And he says to his mum, "Why did that man do that? Who is he?" And she said, "He's an Anglican priest. He's doing it because God loves all people," I think. And from that day forward, Desmond Tutu wanted to be an Anglican priest. He saw what God was about in action. He saw love expressed, equality. And that's what we're called to. We're called to live out this equality, this justice for all people. God invites us into that place, into that journey. And that's what Matthew's gospel has been building up to. And Jesus is about to give his life, his everything, for the sake of God's reign on earth, to share that good news with all people. He's been feeding the hungry. He's been embracing the marginalised, reaching out to those who are sick, giving drink to the thirsty, giving life to those who feel dead and deathly. That's his ministry and mission. That's what he's done, and that's what he calls us into. This week, instead of some reflective music, I'm going to play a video, a short video. It comes from the Exodus Foundation, Reverend Bill Cruz and his team there. I visited them recently and again was just impressed and inspired by the love and the care and the reaching out and the developing of community amongst all people. People who are welcomed in to receive a meal or receive dental or medical care, to find a place that's community, to find a place they can belong to and be equal and share in, a place where they can be recognised for who they are as a human being, a child of God, and valued as a child of God. So I hope it inspires you and invites you into the journey of Christ. Amen.
Hi and welcome to this place. I couldn't personally let this moment go by without thanking you for coming. All that you're going to see and all that you're going to hear began from here. Began with opening the doors of the church and finding most of the people who come were simply hungry. I was also taking in homeless and abandoned children and sleeping them on the pews of the church, and one little old lady got to hear of it and sent me a letter. In the letter from the little old lady was a cheque for $10,000. She said, "You're not to ring me, you're not to write to me, you're to have no contact with me at all, because when my family find out, they'll be very angry with me." One Saturday morning, John Singleton turned up, and in his pocket he had the proceeds of a horse race. "I've just won all this money," he said. "What would you do if I gave it to you?" I said, "Well, I'd open the soup kitchen." He said, Call it loaves and fishes and here's the money. We opened the next day with 80 people and we've never had less. So Exodus began with the proceeds of a horse race and a little old gal giving me the proceeds of the family jewels. Everything else has grown from that. We give voice to the voiceless.
No army can tell us what to do. Our beings are free.
We turn hope into action. A free Christmas Day lunch for thousands of Sydney's poor, homeless and lonely. Every Christmas. We're constantly updating and moving with the times. Better, healthier food, a new state-of-the-art food van serving free, nutritious meals in the city and sprawling growth centres. A new, ultra-modern, free medical and dental clinic, improving lives and creating smiles. Wherever there's need, that's where we attempt to be. And wherever there's difficult need, we don't go to places where it's easy, we go to those places where it's hard. We don't go to those places where everybody says, gee, you're doing a good job. We go to those places where the most need is.
Recovery is different for different people.
The work initially begun here at Exodus has spread far and wide outside of the Sydney Basin. There are the tutorial centres in Gladstone and Darwin. We have a homeless children's centre in Bangkok, soon to be replicated in other centres in Thailand. We work with trafficked children in Cambodia. We have a program for needy kids in Hong Kong. We have a film festival, the Big Picture Film Festival, which began here in Sydney, which is spreading to London and later to Washington and other centres. We work with drug-dependent people, which is spreading to England and other places. We're also involved with life education centres in new ways. Many people here at times will say to me, Bill, there's so much drama here. And I say, well, if there wasn't the drama here, we're not doing our job. Don't come and whinge to me about the people in need who come here who are really difficult, because they're the people we really need to relate to and work with. And working with the poor and disabled and most needy is not easy, it's hard, and it's lonely and it's messy. I really hope what you witness and what you hear here today really touches your heart in such a way that you want to help. So a really warm welcome to this place.